Have you ever noticed some thoughts feel like they come from us, and some thoughts feel like they arrive? They don't feel assembled. They don't feel deliberate. They feel already there, as if we didn't create them, we notice them. Almost like opening a window and realizing the air was always outside, waiting. Most of our thinking is mechanical, memory, reaction, habit. We see this every day, thoughts repeating themselves because they've been repeated before. This kind of thinking feels busy, it feels loud, it feels familiar, and most of the time, we mistake this noise for thinking. But occasionally, a thought enters that feels different. It doesn't excite us, it doesn't rush us, it slows us down. It makes us quiet in the middle of our day. Not because it is confusing, but because it feels real. Almost as if it existed before our minds touched it. And in those moments, something strange happens. We don't feel like we produced the thought. We feel like we recognized it, as if it had been waiting for the right moment to be noticed. So we begin to wonder, where do these thoughts come from? Why do they feel heavier, quieter, more grounded? Why do they feel less like effort and more like remembering? Less like invention and more like recognition? Here's a possibility we keep returning to. What if imagination is not invention? What if anything that can be imagined already has its existence written somewhere? Not written as words, not stored as images, but existing as patterns, possibilities waiting to be understood. If that's true, then when a thought appears in our minds, it isn't being created, it's being accessed. And the mind isn't doing something extraordinary, it's doing what it was meant to do. Maybe the human brain is not a factory of ideas. Maybe it's more like an interpreter, a translator, taking something vast and converting it into language, into equations, into images, into understanding. If this is true, then thinking is not always an act of effort. Sometimes it's an act of alignment. When we start noticing this, we realize we're not alone. Some of the greatest minds described insight in the same way. Srinivasa Ramanujan, one of the most remarkable mathematicians in history, produced formulas that even today continue to challenge modern mathematics. He believed these ideas came to him through visions, and he attributed them to Namagiri Thayar, the goddess of Namakal. Not as step-by-step calculations, but as complete forms, as revelations that simply needed to be written down. Whether we interpret this spiritually or psychologically is not the point. What matters is how knowledge was experienced, not as something constructed, but as something received. Nikola Tesla described something similar. During long walks when the mind was relaxed, ideas appeared fully formed, not gradually, not experimentally, but vividly. The challenge wasn't invention. It was keeping up with what arrived faster than it could be recorded. Thomas Edison approached this in a different way. He intentionally stayed at the edge of sleep, that strange space between waking and dreaming, because ideas surface there without force, without struggle, without effort. Different people, different times, different methods, but the same experience. Insight didn't feel personal, it felt universal. Across cultures and centuries, this quiet observation keeps appearing. That knowledge doesn't always feel owned. Sometimes it feels borrowed, as if it exists independently of us and occasionally passes through us. If that's the case, and then maybe the universe is already written, not like a story with a beginning and an end, but like a field of patterns, possibilities waiting to be perceived. And maybe human consciousness is one of the ways the universe comes to know itself. Not by creating reality, but by translating it. So maybe the human brain is not meant to manufacture reality. Maybe it's meant to translate it, turning something vast into thought, turning patterns into understanding, turning what already exists into meaning. And maybe that's why some thoughts don't feel like ours, because they didn't begin with us. Our minds didn't invent them. They understood them. And for a brief moment, we were aligned with something larger, something that existed long before we noticed it, and will continue to exist long after the thought has passed.